Alright, it is the morning of day 11 here on Tasmania. I've just packed up camp, packed up a wet tent yet again. Gonna head off out of the Huon Valley now and head over the mountain into Kettering, where I'm going to catch the ferry to Bruny Island. Gonna have a quick look around Bruny Island, go to Adventure Bay. That will be the most southern point I've ever been in my life, and the southern point I'm going to on this trip, and then turning around and heading north. Today is going to be a lot of riding. I need to get on the road now. Bruny Island is a very scenic place which lies just south of Hobart, and from where I was situated in Huonville there are a few different ways I could go to get to Kettering, where I would catch the ferry over to Bruny Island. I could have taken the main roads, but I chose a slightly longer route. I chose to follow the Huon River down as far as I could before getting too far out of the way, because I did have to make the ferry on time. After cruising down the Huon River on the western side the previous night, I wanted to check out what the river looked like on the other side. So in Huonville this time, instead of going straight ahead, I turned left and headed around on the eastern side of the Huon River, which wasn't quite as scenic, didn't hug the river quite as much, but it was still a bloody good ride. Nice and winding road along the river. The road wound its way through farmland with the odd glimpse of the river here and there. It was pretty beautiful and still a great little ride. Before long though, it was time to turn left up a little tiny sea road that twisted and turned its way through farmland and small patches of forested areas, and then up and over the hills, coming down the other side with views over the water and my immediate destination, which was Bruny Island. Once again, it was a very scenic ride, as by now I'd come to expect pretty much everywhere I went in Tasmania. Loaded with water views just about around every bloody corner. Before long though, I arrived at Kettering not long before the ferry was ready to set off. There was only one other bike there waiting, ready to catch the ferry. So I chatted with him for a minute or two, and then it was time to go on board the ferry. The jam them on here. It's pretty full. Right underneath us, there's cars parked underneath there as well. And there's the other ferry coming across, the older one. This one's only 2 weeks old apparently. Bruny Island. This is going to be pretty epic. It was only a 20-minute ferry ride across from Kettering to Bruny Island. It was pretty smooth, pretty scenic. Before long, it was time to get off the ferry and go and explore the island. Just like on the mainland of Tasmania, most roads were winding with great views over the water. As it's only a fairly narrow island, it's pretty hard to get away from those scenic water views. Despite the overcast conditions with the threat of rain, it was a beautiful ride. There were a few little spots along the way to stop off and take photos. So I couldn't help myself, as usual, stopping off at this nice little boat ramp here. I just had to grab a quick few photos here, check it out, before heading on my way towards Adventure Bay. Bruny Island isn't all that big. It's only about 100 kilometres long and only about 50 to 60 kilometres wide at its widest point. It didn't take all that long to get down to its narrowest point, which is an area called the Neck. The Neck is an extremely thin, probably only about 50 metres across, piece of land that separates the northern part of Bruny Island from the southern part of Bruny Island. There's a lookout at the Neck which is an awesome place to go and check out the sights of the island. So, of course, I had to stop there and have a look. The Neck has the view that Bruny Island is probably most famous for. It's the view you see on lots of Tasmanian websites and postcards. It is one of those iconic Tasmanian views that you see time and time again. And as soon as I found out it was on Bruny Island, I thought, yep, that sounds like a cool destination. I'm going to go and check it out. Here on Bruny Island, there is the mainland over there. Mainland Tasmania, that is. So I'll come on a big ferry off the big island to a smaller island called Tasmania, where I've caught a smaller ferry to a smaller island called Bruny Island off the coast of Tasmania. We've got a nice look out there. Let's go up there and have a look. Oh, the view's already good and we're not even anywhere near the top yet. That's absolutely amazing. Stunning. Stunning scenery. Just have a look at that, would you? That is incredible. Look how thin the land is there. It's tiny. You gotta think it's gonna break through sooner or later. But no doubt they'll stabilise it. What an amazing view. Definitely worth the $6 ferry ride to come over here for this. I remember seeing this view from this lookout years ago. I never knew where it was. And it's only in recent times, maybe a year or so ago, I realised it was on Bruny Island, and then I thought, if I ever go to Tasmania, I'm going to Bruny Island. And I nearly cancelled it. I nearly didn't come here because I was just running out of time. I really need to be heading north, but man, I'm running out of time. So a quick little visit to Bruny. Going to head on down to Adventure Bay. That'll be my turnaround point. Bruny Island is Tasmania's 4th largest island, spanning an area of 362 square kilometres, which, funnily enough, is roughly about the same size as Singapore, just with slightly fewer people. Only a little bit though. It has a population of around 600 people. That's all. It didn't take long to ride from the Neck down to Adventure Bay, but I'll tell you, the ride was absolutely packed with scenery. There was not a straight road to be found, with the road curving alongside the ocean, providing scenic lookout after scenic lookout. Viewpoint after viewpoint, looking out across the water to the Tasman Peninsula and other bits of land on Bruny Island jutting out across the other side of Adventure Bay. Passing by quiet little sandy beaches that were absolutely stunning. It really is a beautiful part of the world down here. There's so many places I could have stopped for photos, and eventually the urge overtook me. Okay, so here's the fun fact of this episode. Adventure Bay in Bruny Island just happened to be the first place in Australia that apple trees were planted. Not only that, but they were planted by good old Captain Bligh. The famous Captain Bligh visited Adventure Bay in 1788 on his ship the Bounty. The famous mutiny on the Bounty that Hollywood films have been made about. Yes, he was here and planted apple trees in 1788, and therefore indirectly giving Tasmania the name the Apple Isle. Well, this is it. Adventure Bay on Bruny Island. This is the most southern part of the world I've ever been to. This is it, I'm turning around here. I don't know when I'll get further south in the world than this right now. Sometime in the future I hope to. I'll go to New Zealand, but this is it for now. Adventure Bay on Bruny Island, Tasmania is the most southern part of the world I've ever been to. What's the most northern part? Loch Ness, Scotland. The weather there was better than it is here. Had to rain, didn't it? So this was visited by Captain Cook. They use this as a bit of a shelter. I didn't stay long at Adventure Bay, choosing instead to head back to the ferry and get out of the rain.
We'll wait till the end.
Yeah.
But I'm just gonna go pick up your glove.
For the second day in a row, I'd nearly lost my gloves. Once again, due to my stupidity. Another funny moment that I'd completely forgotten about until I started editing this video.
There you go. I was sitting on that side.
I really would have liked to have spent longer on Bruny Island, but I just did not have the time. I only had a couple of days left in Tasmania, and there were a lot of other things I wanted to see. The weather didn't help either, so unfortunately that was it for Bruny Island this time around. Here we are back on the ferry again. There goes Bruny Island. That was a great little spot. Really didn't do it justice. Really need to spend like a whole weekend there exploring the place, at least. But it was good to see it, good to go there, good to experience this ferry ride. The weather is coming in now. It's going to be a wet old ride. I was hoping for some clear weather. It's blue sky patches every now and then, but for the most part it's looking like I'm going to get pissed on for today. Fun. According to the weather app, it was really only the south of Tasmania that was getting completely drenched that day, and the north of the state didn't look too bad at all. And it was up the north that I needed to be in order to catch the ferry back to mainland Australia in 2 days' time. There was some other stuff I wanted to see up the north, so it was north I headed. I didn't know where I was going to end up that night, but I wanted to see Mole Creek and check out the famous pub there. I also wanted to be in close proximity to Cradle Mountain National Park, as that's where I wanted to head the following day.
3 hours since I boarded the ferry at Bruny Island, and I'm in the Central Highlands up in the Great Lakes area, right in the middle of Tasmania. Doesn't take long. It's been a cold ride up here. I am absolutely layered up and frozen. My hands are so numb, but the rest of me's okay. I've got 6 layers on my body, 3 layers on my lower body. It is a chilly day. I would love some sun, but there is no sun. Pretty scenic, lots of winding roads to get up on this plateau. Awesome riding.
After a nice little stop, it was time to get back on the bike, and I found myself on what I think was Tasmania's one and only straight piece of road. Thankfully the straight roads didn't last for long. Before I knew it, I was back on twisting roads once more, winding my way alongside absolutely stunning lakes. It was once more, yet again, another absolutely beautiful ride in Tasmania. Wow. And for the first time that day, the sun really felt like it was about to start to come out, just as I got into some serious twisty stuff as I headed back down from the highlands back into the north of Tasmania. What a beautiful ride that was. Absolutely stunning. Beautiful views up in the high country, and then just dropping down into farmland and more beautiful scenery, just for something different. I dropped down into a pretty little town called Deloraine. As soon as I rode into the town, started passing along the river with its parklands on either side, I thought, yeah, this is a nice town to stay in. Let's see if I can find some accommodation here. But as it was a long weekend in Tasmania, there was no hope of getting accommodation anywhere around there. Another option that I'd thought of earlier was to stay at Mole Creek Hotel, so I thought I'd head that way and see if I could stay in Mole Creek.
Have a look at those mountains out there. So I've made it tonight to Mole Creek. I had planned on making it here tonight, but I was planning on staying at the pub, but everything's booked up everywhere because it's a long weekend in Tasmania. So we're at the last tent site in this caravan park, and it'll do $12 a night. I'm heading down the pub now for a meal, check out that place because it's pretty cool.
Tasmania is full of interesting history and quirky little things, and one of those interesting pieces of history revolves around the thylacine, or the Tasmanian tiger. which was thought to have become extinct back in 1936. But even to this day, there are still sightings every now and then. And a lot of these sightings seem to be in the hills surrounding the Mole Creek area. So the Mole Creek Hotel has set itself up as a little bit of a shrine to the famous thylacine. It was a great evening, chatting to locals and a few tourists about travels throughout Tasmania. It was a nice relaxing night after a huge day of riding, just what I needed to prepare myself for the adventures that were coming up the next day. Cradle Mountain, what an absolutely magnificent part of the world.